morning, everyone. Good morning, my co-panelists, and really happy to be here on this bright morning, as you can see outside your windows. So I'm really happy to be hosting this session and also moderating the session that will last for about 30 minutes or so. Yeah. Just to set a quick context, yeah, we are experiencing one of the biggest business transformations due to Corona. As George Bersin says, it's a health crisis, but it's also the incredible opportunity to transform. Employees are getting treated better, perhaps, than ever before, and employee engagement seems to be going up. There certainly seems to be more transparency, trust in the workforce, like we've never seen ever before. Just to talk about a Willis research that happened some time back, 90% of the companies believe that their culture has improved. 83% of the companies that participated believed that employee experience is getting better, and 84% employees believe that employee engagement has gone up. But the question is, did it require a global pandemic for us to reach this stage? Well, whatever it is, I think we're here today in the situation that we are, and in the next few minutes, we'll try and understand what's happening in the world around us with these eminent panelists that I have, and I'm really pleased to introduce them now. I start with Girish. Girish, his expertise lies in setting up HR processes for scale in startups, managing stakeholders in the matrix organization, and driving key people practices. But what I'm more happy to introduce is the zany side of him. His curious, financially imprudent learner in him is seen often. His curiosity gets better of cash flows. That's what he claims to say. We need to check that out. Tends to enroll to many as half dozen programs annually and ends up completing only a few of it. Well, you've got company with you, Girish, on that. Yeah. Psychotherapy, applied counseling, clinical hypnotherapy, astrology are among the many things that he's started and he will complete someday, right? A law degree and transactional analysis and coaching are a few things that he has completed. So good for you, Girish, there. Welcome to the panel today. And so keep learning to always keep earning is his mantra, which some of you may note down and practice. I have great pleasure in introducing Neville today. Neville Postwala is the Associate Vice President, Talent Management at the Harbinger Group. He leads the talent management function with his vast experience. He's been instrumental in leading Harbinger to various HR awards, some of them being Excellence in Innovation, the HR Asia Leadership Award, Safe Place to Work by Rainmaker, and other awards. So what's very interesting about him is, besides work, Neville is a theatre actor and has performed in numerous plays in Mumbai and Pune. But he's told us he's not going to do any acting today. He'll be absolutely straightforward in what he says today. Apart from this is really interesting, guys. He's a food connoisseur and loves trying out different cuisines. So you know where to go next time you're at Mumbai. He's an avid writer and his recent blogs can be found on his LinkedIn page. He's written articles and publications in Times Job, Tech Gig, amongst others. So very happy to have you here, Neville. A warm welcome again. I have great pleasure in introducing Krishna Raghavan. He's a multifaceted individual. I learned that he's the founder of Yoga Bharati, which teaches yoga across a spectrum of society. One of his lesser known interests, by his admission, is that he's a great fan of art and literature and writes poems, but not yet for public consumption. So Krishna, what does it take for you to go public now? Let us know quickly, yeah? Apart from that, he's the CHRO of Flipkart. That's what he does for a living. But what's really interesting, he's an engineer by profession, and he's actually graduated to the role of CHRO after having been head of engineering and technology for a very, very long time. So welcome, Krishna. I think we've just lost him for a bit. Let's have him back. I have great pleasure to introduce Shraddhanjali, Shraddha, as she would like to be addressed. One thing she says, that nobody knows. And hold your breath, and I'm going to reveal that now. She's obsessively compulsive, curious cat when it comes to books. And once she picks up a book, she says she cannot put it down. And then she has to go to the end, no matter how bad the book is, right? So if you're dealing with Shraddha, keep the books away if you want her to listen to what you have to say. So Shraddha is heading HR. She's a VP HR of SAP India. That's what she does for a living. Shraddha, I just realized that we both are from the same alma mater, St. Francis in Hyderabad. So I think we have something in common. So really happy to have you here, Shraddha, and a warm welcome. And about myself, I think as Yasmin has already mentioned, I'm working with Ashok Leyland, probably one of the few women in an automobile sector, I would say. So it feels really good to be in a man's world and challenge the all the postulates of the man's world, if I may say so. But more than anything else, I think I'm a HR professional who has been around for a while, have been seeing how the landscape has been changing, love to interact with students, diehard fan of Shami Kapoor movies, can watch them over and over again 1,000 times. And I think travel has been a passion, and I've been very worried since COVID started as to how I'm going to do that. So that's what it is. I speak about 5 different languages, including Portuguese. So that's what makes up for this panel for all of you today. So really happy to have all of you here. And as I've set the context already, the topic that we are looking at today is about employee experience, right? So that's, it's a very important topic because it actually, as I mentioned in the context setting, this is something which is undergoing a massive change. So SAP HR Connect 2020, preparing for an uncertain future and redefining the employee experience is what we're going to talk about. With this, I also understand there are going to be some poll questions done by People Matters team. So once in a while, when that question pops up, we'll have some of our panelists answering that. So let's get started if we're all ready, right? So to begin with, I think I'm going to turn my first question to Neville. Neville, how has the overall landscape changed because of COVID? And what are 2 or 3 best practices from your organization that you can share with regard to managing employee experience?
Yeah, Uma, thank you. Thanks for having me on this panel. I hope you can hear me. So I think I work for a software company called Harbinger. We are in the HR tech domain, which is we actually help to build HR software products for other companies. And we have a few of our own software products as well. And as a software company, we would have seen work from home happening earlier, but not on the scale of what we are seeing right now. And I think that has thrown up a couple of challenges for various enabling functions, whether it's the IT team or the HR team or finance. And I think what has really become prominent is that all these teams now have to work with a very, very high degree of collaboration to make sure that employees successfully work from home. So it's not only HR, but it's an entire support or enabling function that really is required to work in a high degree of precision to make sure that there's no productivity loss. And our customers are kind of getting deliverables as per the same productivity level. That's one. Another one, Uma, is I think the change of mindset of managers is something that is going to be a skill that we need to develop, because earlier on, we've not had managers who were used to this volume of working from home. Like almost everybody in the organization is working from home, and the mindset of managers need to change, because with teams not in the line of sight, sometimes this can build situations of mistrust. Situations like, why did he not pick up my call? Or why is she not responding to my message on Teams? These kind of things can build up a bit of mistrust. So managers need to build higher levels of trust with their teams. And on the other hand, I think team members also need to learn to figure out to, work effectively work from home and have some etiquettes to that manner. Now, some changes that I'm actually seeing is, I'm seeing a change where the employee experience is moving away from a high touch to a low touch scenario. And let me explain in a minute or so what this means. So I think traditionally HR team members have always preferred to meeting people in person. We are very, very popular for calling people into rooms and, saying we want to have a face-to-face discussion with you. But I think now and in the future, we're going to see a major reduction in this kind of activity. Various HR forums that I'm a part of or groups that I'm a part of are quite, it's quite evident that this is taking a big dip. And with collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams or Slack or Zoom that we're on right now, these are being used to virtually connect with employees and teams. And all of us are using these social collaboration platforms. Even at Harbinger, we've been using this before, but now we're kind of really using this to the max. So traditional help desks are moving online. And, my team actually reports that they're getting a better response from people who they talk to virtually as compared to who they would actually physically face-to-face meet, when, COVID was not there. But my point is just plain alone, standalone collaboration tools are not going to be enough for a seamless positive experience for the future, because we're going to have to see a lot of integration with collaboration tools and other HR software. So whether you're talking like an onboarding software or a performance management software or a learning software, a learning management system, these are going to be integrated into Zoom or Teams, in my opinion. So let me give you an example. Just suppose we are using Zoom or we're using Teams. In that platform itself, there are going to be various add-ons and plugins that will, say managers, they'll be enabled to give performance feedback, or my manager will be able to suggest a learning need for you, or, suddenly a pop-up of a chatbot may happen and that will start interacting with me. And all this is happening while I'm on Zoom, while I'm on Slack, or while I'm on Teams. And whatever inputs I'm getting, if I'm getting a learning management, if I'm getting a training need, that will flow into my LMS, or if I'm getting coaching feedback, that will flow into a different system. So I think this really makes it much more easier for a manager. The other thing that I want to say is I'm seeing that there's a lot of focus on HR tools being repositioned. So, a tool that was built for, one purpose is going to be used for multiple purposes. And especially, I think in this context, they'll be used a lot to engage with teams. And we're seeing this in Harbinger as well. A while ago, we developed our own learning platform. It's the micro learning platform. It's called Plato, and it's pretty much for pushing nudges and learning. But now we're seeing a completely new use for Plato, which is for employee experience. And let me give you a couple of examples that, how potentially this can be used. Now, say I'm working in a hospital and there are doctors on the field who are treating patients, and these doctors need to be kept updated with the latest health and medicine tips, because that keeps on changing on a continuous basis. Now imagine that a learning platform that was traditionally used for learning is now used to put daily nudges of learning, latest tips on treatment, maybe a short minute video from your head of the hospital, a short 2-minute call, start to get pushed using your learning platform to my doctor's mobile phone. And my doctors can view this on a couple of minutes a day, and they can get, updated on latest treatment. Small assessments can also be pushed to doctors. So, this whole change, I think it's really changing the employee experience. And since, all this is online and we have data, the system knows which doctor is assessing which part of information, take reports and insights. And basically, all these can be used backend to improve the system, to improve the content, and make more and better nudges and engagement going out to people. So these are various changes that I'm seeing in the HR context right now. And I believe this is really going to revolutionize the way we look at employee experience. And it's definitely here to stay. So, that's.
Thank you, Neville. That's been very interesting to hear how you have done it in the world of technology. And I think let's hear some other experiences as well. And in the meanwhile, I've been looking at some of the questions that have come up. So I'm going to move to Krishna now. Krishna, if you're there.
Yeah, absolutely, Uma.
Great. So once again, welcome. And I just wanted to check with you, what's going on at your end in terms of the whole employee experience piece. And I was looking at one of the questions, which I think if you can interface that in your answer, it'll be great.
Sure.
How should empathy and engaging employees work together? That's what is one of the questions. And also how to monitor for people who are working from home. So while you share your best practices, if you could address these two as well, about
Sure.
empathy and measurement, I think that'll be fantastic.
Sure. Thank you, Uma, first of all. Good morning to everyone. So at Flipkart, I think, first of all, being an e-commerce platform itself in the country, right? So as the pandemic actually broke out, the priority for the company has been to actually deliver essentials for the country. So, the rules and regulations have been changing fairly swiftly across the landscape of the country. And as a company, I think from a landscape standpoint, I'll just try to cover very quickly 3 points, and I'll talk about employee experience as well as part of that. So as I mentioned, the focus has been on delivering essentials. So we've had to kind of repurpose our entire supply chain to deliver essentials to the country. Just as an example, we had supply chain which delivered other products like smartphones or refrigerators and things of that nature. But now that supply chain has been repurposed to deliver groceries. And that happened over a span of few weeks for us to actually open up across the country. So that's one piece that I want to talk about from an overall mix for e-commerce. Also, the whole regulations around interstate movement has meant that we have to source sellers from the local ecosystem. You might have sellers participating in e-commerce across states to deliver into Maharashtra or things of that nature. But now with interstate movement actually restricted, how do you actually completely change your sourcing strategy? And that has meant that you actually focus on a local ecosystem, which I think in the long term would benefit the country as well, in sort of creating those pockets. And finally, the customer engagement on the platform itself. It's changed quite rapidly in terms of consuming a lot of content. So our videos play on the platform has actually increased manifold over the last few weeks. And that's been something as a learning for us as a platform. Now I'll just cover quickly on the employee experience piece. I think, as I mentioned, there are clearly two demographics in Flipkart. One is the set of workforce that's actually in the last mile, delivering products to customers, end customers. And these are really the heroes actually across the country, right? Be it in Swiggy or be it in Zomato or other companies that are operating. So how do we actually ensure that you ensure the safety of these employees? That's been actually the most important thing for us. So towards that, we've had to kind of rethink our entire thought process of supply chain design. How do you ensure social distancing in the warehouse? And that has actually spurred a bunch of, jugaad, innovation on the ground from employees. For instance, employees came together and said, let me actually create a tunnel, which is a sanitization tunnel where all my trolleys can move in. And this was not something that actually somebody did from the top down. It actually came from the ground workforce. So that's actually spurred a bunch of local innovation. So I think I'd like to sort of share learnings through the lens of what Flipkart's done, and hopefully for other companies to also look at potentially. So how can you actually encourage grounds up innovation in times like this is a big learning from a supply chain standpoint. The other piece that I'd like to talk about is, given a very diverse workforce across multiple states, multiple languages, the biggest problem we actually faced is how do you create a sense of awareness, a heightened sense of safety and awareness. And so therefore we rolled out around 3,000 awareness sessions in multiple languages, pretty much every language that we can think of, across our FCs to ensure that people on the ground understand what does safety mean in the new normal. I think that goes a long way to ensure that the awareness is in place while the safety measures are in place. Because without awareness, you can have everything that you have in terms of safety precautions. But if employees on the ground aren't actually following those, you still expose yourself to the risk. So that's been a very important aspect from a supply chain standpoint. I think that's where the empathy comes into play. The fact that as an employee, you're on the last mile and you're delivering, does even upper management recognize that you are actually putting yourself in harm's way? Yes, there are safety equipment, there are a bunch of other things in play here. But the fact is you're out on the field, and does the top management care about it? So all of us, including myself, we actually rolled out a bunch of a campaign to recognize these individuals in the last mile, and we called it COVID Heroes. And we actually, launched that, and we celebrated that within the company to recognize individuals who go beyond and operate in this crisis. I think that's a big learning for us, and we'd like to share that learning as well with all of you all. Now I'll talk about the corporate workforce. So obviously a lot of us have talked about work from home being the new normal and a lot of that. So I won't spend too much time on that. But while a lot of companies and including Flipkart might have adopted a work from home strategy, but this is different. This is an extended work from home. And let's not underestimate the impact that it has on the employee. It's not all rosy, right? Because you're talking about a space where you actually co-share that space with a bunch of other family members potentially. You could have people working in the home as well. And how do you actually enable multiple workspaces at home? You have children as well working from now with their schools shut down. How do you enable that? So I think it's very important to recognize in this situation that you're not actually just working with one employee, but you're actually working with a larger ecosystem that that employee resides in today. And it's a very important recognition for us. And that goes again towards the empathy point that you mentioned, Uma, overall. So towards that, we've actually focused a lot on employee recognition and engagement. I talked about recognition through the COVID Heroes campaign, but from an engagement standpoint, a lot of our focus has been on mental wellness as well, in addition to physical wellness. So we have 21 days of wellness programs that have actually been rolled out. We have various kinds of initiatives like bring your pets into your workspace day, bring your family into your workspace day, Chai Pe Charcha, a bunch of other initiatives that is meant to sort of lighten the mood, lighten the space that you're working in, and also guide managers on what are best practices as well as employees work from home. A common feedback that we received as well is as people work from home with extended periods of time, the lines are getting blurred between what's a work day and what's your personal space. So how do you actually provide guidelines? For instance, do you even talk about having a lunch hour? Do you talk about guidelines around logging off after 6 or 7, whatever stipulates? So each team has to find a rhythm, and we've kind of put out guidelines to help teams adopt to this new rhythm. So that's something that we've done. And lastly, I'll just quickly talk about the piece around which I think is the most important, is the transparency and authenticity through communication. So communication is not just about putting out an all hands and doing it, but actually facing some of the challenges head on. There was a lot of talk about what could potentially happen to the business. What does it mean for employees? Will there be layoffs? Will we honor promotions this cycle? Will we actually give merit increases? In our first Flipster Connect, we addressed all of this. Over 6,000 people attended that. So I think leaders coming on and saying all those things transparently and authentically actually meant a lot. And we received very positive feedback on that front. So communication is very, very important. And as we return to work, I'd like to finish with this, is that I think we are offering employees an option to work from home on a continued basis, but we also have to recognize that there are employees out there who cannot work from home for extended periods of time. So towards that, we've kind of ensured our facilities are completely safe. And I think companies need to recognize that WFH is not possible for everyone. And that again goes back to the point about empathy. And the last question that you asked me was about monitoring. I think you have to have trust. I don't think you need to monitor. There are measurements around how employees are productive in this time. And if you measure results, things will fall in place. I don't think you really need to monitor.
Great. Great. Thanks a lot, Krishna. I think it's a very comprehensive response. And at this juncture, I'm going to actually have a poll question. So team, if you can help with the poll question, I think that will be great. We'd love to hear. Audience, please stay engaged and respond to the question. How far have you been able to manage the employee experience in this crisis as compared to before? That's a question. And there are 3 responses. And we'll just keep moving on as we wait to hear this. Okay. So now I'm going to move to the next question, and that's going to be to Shraddha. Shraddha, while you will help us to understand perhaps how employee experience is being handled at your end in SAP, here's one question which you may also want to add along as you talk about it. You know, people are talking about flipping the paradigm. Can you suggest ways to craft personalized employee experience? So if that's part of your answer, I think that's great. Yeah.
Happy to do that, Uma. Thank you for the question and a pleasure being here. So I think Krishna and Neville have spoken about a lot of things that happened. The first couple of weeks of this unprecedented experience, to say so, took all of us by a storm, right? So the first couple of weeks were about preparedness and looking at HR policies, processes, what can you get on ground, right? We went 1 week ahead before the curfew. So we asked people to come to offices, take stuff, go back home, take monitors if you needed, whatever. So we did all of that. But that time, we also had to do a lot of things. We had to go completely virtual onboarding, and we weren't. So it's not that. The good part is we were prepared technology wise, but we had never done it at this scale. So we had to go from virtual onboarding to interviewing people. We had to get people safe and secure. And like I think Krishna pointed out, the first couple of weeks were really about communication. And to an extent, there was over communication, but that is what kind of put people in place. So we put a platform together. It's called SAP In It Together. It's one place any employee around the world, and you can have that by country, gets all the information about, you know, the pandemic, about what we're doing, about the person's benefits, about what's applicable, not applicable. Single point, accessible everywhere. We got this up and running in 3 days, and that made a lot of reassurances. And like you said, there were always questions, right? What does this mean? Do I have my job? Does this mean something different? Interns were really, really nervous, right? Do I have that virtual? And you know, this is the summertime, that's when they come in. How will that experience be? So we really had to go really fast forward and look at policies and processes. Some that I want to call out, right? Mental wellness. So I think after the first 2 weeks, what we learned out of that exercise was you need to really truly treat people authentically. I think everybody put in that extra effort to work. If they were working 8 hours in office, they were working 10 at home, just to prove to the point that I can work at home. And that was seemingly also leading to a question of burnout. And that as an organization, we were concerned about. So we said, you know, what are the things that you can put in place? We of course did a whole lot of engagement activities. We initially started with things for our employees, but then we realized you're back at home. You have kids around you. You have aging parents around you. You have caregiving responsibility. We live in India. Let's be very practical about it. If there's going to be a cooker whistle at the end of that call, people shouldn't get, you know, overtly embarrassed about it. It became a part of our lives. We had memes running around, I'm sure, on social media where, you know, children would come in. Yes, we had to get that sensitivity in. People understood. But one thing I want to call out, and which filled my heart with pride, was a trust acceleration I saw happening across the organization. So till that point, there were a lot of managers who always said, work from home 1 day a week is okay, right? Theek hai. That is, it's fine. I'm willing to do that. But then now you had managers who had to operate and deliver at the same level. And we did a study. I must tell you that our productivity for the development organization, which is the tech organization, was the same. So this was measured after 4 weeks, and people did, the productivity continued to stay. So we had multiple forums of engagement. We did engagements with the family, something as a virtual concert, which is done just by our own employees, for our employees, where families got involved. We always had EAP, or employee assistance programs, for not just employees, but their family members. We saw an uptake of that. We did nudge behaviors. I think it was beautifully pointed out. We did a whole lot around manager enablement. And this was very, very important, because the last mile experience of an employee is, how am I treated with my manager? How much trust and credibility do I have? A lot of focus on empathy that was demonstrated there. But one thing, again, I want to highlight to you, it was not just the employee. We did it with our partners and ecosystem. We put all our products out there, right? At the beginning, I must tell you, to track where employees were around the globe when we were going into border lockdowns, to try and see who's where. And not just, of course, you know, the ones who are internationally on a business trip, but even on a personal level, going out, reaching, providing that support may sound very small, but this is what leads to employee experiences. We ran a whole lot of stories of how people struggled in the couple of first weeks. And that created a vulnerable environment saying, you know, I'm not the only one struggling. Now let's do these things. At the end of 4 weeks, people said, we're okay with work, but we're not connecting informally. So we put in more stuff, informal connections. And, you know, in terms of providing platforms, providing engagement mechanisms, I'll give you a small example. A lot of times bandwidth does not always work, right? And we all know this. This is the truth of life. As a measure, can you switch on your camera for the first 10 seconds of a meeting? Just for a wave out, right? Let's understand that. Can you do that as a practice in your teams? So very, very small interventions that we went in, products that we made available to our customers and partners. We did Qualtrics as a survey. So we already did 2 surveys, understood exactly the employee sentiment, and we went after what their feedback was. In the first one, they said more communication. The second one, they said more resources. We said, okay, here you go. Enablement for managers, employees, programs, and so on and so forth. So a whole lot, but answering the last part, I think what we're reimagining is truly the roles. We are going back and questioning, does this role need to be done by somebody full-time? Can we break this into pieces? Can this be done remotely? Can I imagine an entirely virtually immersive experience for onboarding in a long term, even when we go back to normal, right? And things like that. So there's a whole lot as an outlook that we're looking at.
No, thank you so much, Shraddha, because I think you've answered a lot of questions that have come in here in terms of what are you doing, how are you reimagining the organization, etc. So thank you very much. Beautiful insights. We've got about 6 minutes to go before we wrap up this session. So I'm going to go straight to Girish. Girish, you're in an industry, and there's a question for you as well, which I'm going to read. You are in an industry where product is shipped, delivered by someone whom customer does not know. Not sure about the safety measures. How are you giving confidence in this difficult time to customers that you're in safe hands and you've taken utmost care for safety? Because even few cases will impact your service and customer trust. So this is one aspect that you may want to look at, but more importantly, help us to understand how in the new age industry that you are in, you're managing this whole piece of employee experience.
Awesome, and thanks for having me here. It's going to be incredibly hard for me to cover all of this in 5 minutes, and also to cover points which is different from what the other panelists have told. So it's going to be easy for me to tell +1, +1, +1, but let me jump into it, right? So I'll touch upon before employee experience on CX, which is customer experience, and DX, which is delivery executive experience. So from a CX point of view, I think I'll answer the question as well, right? When I talk about this, it was extremely important for us to emphasize on hygiene, on safety, on measures that we are taking, so that the food that's prepared is safe and we are delivering it in a safe manner. So we had to really quickly be agile in making those changes in the product and the process we had. We had the whole remote delivery introduced, where we can drop the food near your home without touching. Contactless delivery is what we call that in the app. We had to start measuring temperature of the delivery executives. We show the temperature of the delivery executives at this point in time. From our own kitchens, we measure the temperature of the chef as well, and the people who cook, or commies. So those are things that we've done. I think this fear is here to stay because Corona is not going anywhere. But the fact is that people will probably want to order in at home than going out and eating. So we know we have a responsibility at hand to ensure that this hygiene and safety continues. So we have all our efforts there to ensure that we have safety from a delivery executive perspective, from a kitchen perspective, and from a packaging perspective, right? So that's on the CX bit. On the delivery executive bit, of course, we are taking a lot of measures in terms of their safety, temperature, social distancing, helping them with medical insurance, helping them with medical kits, helping them with grocery kits for their own families, etc. So that's something that we've done for delivery executives. From an employee perspective, like Shraddhanjali and Krishna mentioned, we were one of the earliest to go work from home. I think we went to work from home 2 weeks before the actual lockdown. So we could really test how work from home will pan out. And so basically we were focusing on 3 areas, and I'm slowly moving into EX and quickly, and I'm going to be fast with this. So we're focusing on the mindset, the tool set, and the skill set which people require. So initially, they went through this whole process, what I call the danger process, right? There was denial, there was anger and acceptance, there was no action, there was get going, and then there was extreme resistance, and then there was regularizing. So the entire cycle we went through. So we had to kind of crash those when we understood that people are not moving. They've accepted, but they don't want to make a change, right? They know they need to work from home, but I don't want to ask my team to work. Those are things that we kind of had to bust in the first 2 weeks, and we quickly went work from home, and we've already announced work from home. And that's not going to be easy, right? Like Krishna mentioned, social distancing is also leading to social isolation. So how do you ensure that the ones who want to come back to work are able to come back to work? So we're going to have high safety measures in office as well. As much as people created a work from home document, we also created a work from office document for people to know how to work from office. So that's a document that we created. So I'm going to quickly move on to the HR side, because I know there are a lot of HR folks in this who want to learn from this panel. So 5 things which I would say. I think first we need to be change leaders and not change managers. And I'll talk maybe 5 seconds about each one of them because of the time. Then there's work-life integrator. We need to be redefining people engagement. We'll have to do tech and touch integration, and we'll have to orchestrate interactions. Those are 5 things that HR folks will need to do over the next couple of years, in my view. Change leader, because like how the Lehman crisis or the subprime crisis happened in 2008-9 was finance-led, right? Was poor lending. This crisis is people-led. It's not finance-led. It's people-led crisis leading to finance. So how CFOs emerged as leaders at that point in time, I think CHROs will emerge as leaders, right? Because time is not going to heal. Time is not going to change, right? Time is only going to heal. Of course, people need to lead change. I would add virus to that list, because I think COVID has created more change than any of the leaders in the last 1 century. So, but we need to lead the change. So that's going to be the role of the HR folks to lead the change, really. Work-life integration, people spoke about it. The lines are blurring between day and night, on and off, weekday and weekend, working day and holiday, right? So I think we should just ensure that we have all the measures to ensure that work-life integration is happening. What we've done in Swiggy is build a program called Built Around You, which focuses on mental wellness, financial wellness, physical wellness, and legal wellness. So we're covering all aspects of people so that they're at home, but they get all of this at at a video chat for them, unlimited. Not just for them, because when they're at home, people are also feeling the stress the person is feeling, right? Because normally in India, you say you leave the work at office and you come back home, but you are at home and the work is happening. So people are feeling the stress. So it's important for not just the employee, but also the family to get all these benefits. So the Built Around You program is actually for not just the employee, but also for the family members. So that's something which we've done in Swiggy. Redefining HR people engagement model is basically distance is equal to 0, right? As in, distance can't spoil anything now. So how can you really start working with people outside of India who have the skill set in, say, data sciences? How can you have more gig workers working with you? Like, I have 6 people in my HR team, all of them who are gig workers who work only 3 days a week or 2 days a week, but really contributing towards talent management, employer branding, technology, analytics, all of this, right? So how do you really get gig workers to work is what we need to look at. The 4th point which I spoke about was tech and touch integration. This is the whole tool set aspect of it, whether it's Slack, Confluence, the processes, because there are various types of meetings, right? You have one-on-one, one-to-many, one-to-few, few-to-few, many-to-many. How do you really start orchestrating those meetings and make it meaningful when you are remote? So that's the last point about how do you really orchestrate communication, right? Because it's very important, because when you're in office, you serendipitously go and bump into someone when you're walking on the corridor. And I've realized that the corridor chats are so powerful because the powerful ideas come from the corridor and not from the board meeting, right? So how do you really engineer that serendipity, right? How do you create that remotely? Those are things that one needs to think as HR. So our old models of 100:1, 200:1 employee to HR, all of that is going to go out of the window. It's really going to be about how do you touch people's life and make a difference, right? In classroom, you need a monitor, but I think in organizations, you need respect and trust.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that's so well said, Girish, and especially knowing the challenges that you have of a profile of workforce in companies like yours and Krishna, I think it makes it even more challenging. So thank you for that. I'm going to turn at this juncture to find out what happened on that poll question that we asked. So can we have the answers there as to what's come up, the question that we asked a while ago? Yeah, okay. So how far have you been able to manage the employee experience? It says about the same, slightly less effective, 35%, and a significant gap, 19. So yeah, I mean, so one thing that comes out for me is, the experience does not go down because of work from home. So let's take it that way, and we're only going to get better. So thank you very much. Can we have the next poll question up, please, if you're ready there? Can we have another poll question while we go to the end of the session, and then we will find out what that poll question looks like. Yeah. What were some of the challenges your organization faced in delivering a good experience? Audience, please go ahead and poll. Was it budget, forces outside your direct control, leadership, or technology? And we'll come back in a while to find out what it meant for all of you. Now, I have a question now for Neville. Yeah, Neville, the question for you is, all employee experience initiatives may not have the same value for everybody. For some, it may be good. For some, it may not work, right? So how do we look at this aspect when we roll out some of these initiatives? How have you been doing that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's not a one size fits all. And I think at some point of time, there is, you need to cater to different kind of people at different times in their journey. I think right now, communication is really key. And I think at Harbinjar, we've been doing this pretty well. We have a program that we launched called Vitamin, which is VI is virtual and MIN is mingling. And what we do in Vitamin is every single day from 4 o'clock to 4:30, it's an open invitation to everybody. And people come online and there are discussions that happen, people share talents. Just to give you some data, we started this on the 19th of March, if I remember, with about 20 odd people. We'll be covering we'll be doing our 40th session very shortly in the next week. And on an average, we've got about 200, 250 people attending each session. Now, what happens in Vitamin is we've crowdsourced various activities to happen that cater to different sets of people. Some sessions we've had we had an adventure session, ex-army captain talking about his adventures. We had a virtual tour around various popular international destinations. Somebody came and gave a short cooking recipe because we had a short user experience. Ladakh. We had somebody from Manila in the Philippines come and talk about, how to deal with people with disabilities and a bunch.
Neville, we're losing you. Sorry. Is
this better?
Yeah. We need to come to the end.
Yeah.
So if you can quickly wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, people, and it's become a craze. So people really look forward to this session every day.
Thank you. Very important. And I love the Vitamin. So I think we also need to call out the best question. So I have the power to do that. So I'm going to exercise that. I'm thinking of looking at Manoj Deshmukh's question, which was for Krishna and Girish, about the employee experience and the customer experience and the safety. So that goes as the best question, and they get a special gift, a Google Mini, as was told. So that is so a big round of applause for wherever you are for Manoj Deshmukh for asking that question. So it's about time now for me to wrap up. But if you have the poll question answer, can we just have it up on the screen, please? Okay. So, no, this is the earlier question. The second question is what we'll look at. Okay. As you're bringing that up, I think I'm just going to wrap up quickly. When I look at our own, environment of automobile manufacturing, virtual has become real now more than ever before. Care has been the big word that we have been looking at. Oh, we've got the poll answers up. So some challenges facing outside of your forces outside of your direct control seems to be the largest challenge, followed by budget and all of that. So thank you for that. So just to continue, the work from home was never ever imaginable in a manufacturing company, and that has happened for us, and that's gone on so well. We are so busy, 12 hours in a day. That's not very good though. Yeah, commitment, I think, has increased at all levels. People, as Shraddha was saying, people want to prove that, they're really there and they want to do a lot and they have to be at it all the time and things like that. What we have done very well as an employee experience, I think we've trained our people on the BS6 technology, because the regime is moving from BS4 to BS6. And we couldn't have had a better time than this to have a captive audience to teach them all about technology. And now we're going to be taking the vehicle with the BS6 technology and actually asking them to recollect all that they have learned as a part of this. And like some others, I think we've been talking, having the leaders talking to a lot more people, and more transparency has come up, which I think is absolutely great news. So in summary, if I were to just wrap up all the lovely ideas that have come from all of you, I can't do justice to all, but just to tell you quickly that high touch versus low touch, I think that's the theme, clearly. More online work in the back end, that seems to be another theme. E-commerce and local ecosystem has really picked up. So the Jugaad innovation has been one of the biggest things that Krishna talked about. And he talked about recognizing individuals who've gone beyond the normal. It could be monetary, non-monetary, career, whatever it is, but I think there are many ways of doing it. Wellness, I think Shraddha talked about that. So many aspects of wellness that have come to the fore, bringing pets and chai pe chacha and so many other things that we've heard here. Trust has to be on, and it seems to have gone up. The question is, why wasn't there earlier? Well, good question for all of us to think about if it wasn't so. Talent has come out, in the sense that you're talking about manager enablement and all of that. Looking at we have been looking at our org structure. We have been changing the org structure to suit what's happening. So I think some others will be doing that. And I really liked what Girish said, we got to be the change leader, the work-life integrator. Look at the gig workers, because they're here to stay. And finally, the harbingers vitamin shot that Neville brought to the table. So really, thank you very much, all of you, for this wonderful interaction today. And I'm sure the audience have learned. There were many, many questions, audience. I'm sorry, we haven't been able to pick up all of them, but we will come back again and answer them in another way. And a big thanks to People Matters, SAP, Soumya, Yasmin, and everyone who's brought this event together for us. Thank you very much, and signing off from here. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for joining us, Krishna, Neville, Girish, Shraddhanjali, and Uma. I'm sure we all have taken pointers to be used, and we'll use them going further. And now I smell some coffee brewing. Indeed, it is time for us to grab a cup of coffee. The Lavazza is waiting for you, along with some freshly baked conversation. So please take your coffee and join us in the networking area to engage and network. And up next, we will have the workshop you all must be waiting for. Join us in the next 10 minutes after our brew break to witness the most sought after workshop on designing a foolproof employee experience strategy with Jason Avago. See you on the other side, everyone.